You know, sometimes the biggest stories are hiding right there in plain sight. Today, we're going to tell the story of one of them, a massive power plant that was just a giant on the landscape for decades. So, let's get right into it.
So, I want you to picture this. For almost 30 years, there's this constant hum in the background of a nation, a super reliable source of energy. Day in, day out. It just did its job. But then, in late 2024, after all that time,
The hum just stopped. A 362 megawatt power plant? I mean, a colossal machine built to power cities. It just went silent. The fires went out, the turbines stopped spinning, a giant fell asleep. Which, of course, brings us to the big question, the one we're here to answer today. Why? Why on earth would you shut down a plant that had been such a reliable workhorse for almost 30 years? The answer, well, it's a fascinating story about technology, economics, and a country's ever-changing needs. To really get the answer, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. See, the story of Lalpir Power doesn't start with a shutdown. It starts with a birth, one that came directly out of a major national crisis. So, back in the early 90s, Pakistan was really struggling with some serious power shortages. I mean, the demand for electricity was just skyrocketing, but the supply, it just couldn't keep up. The country needed power, and it needed it fast. This desperation, really, it led to a whole new policy designed to get private companies to invest in the energy sector. And this timeline here, it lays out the plant's entire life story. It got started in '94, a direct result of that new power policy. By '97, boom, it's up and running. Then in 2010, ownership changes hands from the American company AES to a local powerhouse, the Nishat Group. And then, the final chapter in 2024, the government terminates the contract. A full 30-year journey, start to finish. But before we jump to the end, we really need to understand just how important this plant was when it was running. For decades, Lalpir wasn't just another power station. It was a true workhorse, a technological giant that played an absolutely crucial role in keeping the lights on for millions. And the sheer scale here is just immense. 362 megawatts. That is a massive amount of power, consistently pumped into the national grid for nearly 3 decades. It was a real cornerstone of the country's energy supply. All right, let's get into the specifics. The plant ran on something called residual fuel oil, or RFO. At its heart was a really sophisticated Mitsubishi steam turbine. And even though it was started by an American developer, its key role was profoundly local. It was absolutely instrumental during that infamous load-shedding crisis between 2007 and 2015, that period of intense, rolling blackouts all over the country. Believe me, Lalpir was one of the reasons things weren't even worse.
you know, their official mission was simple and to the point: committed to energy excellence. And that really wasn't just a slogan. It spoke to a sense of pride and purpose in the critical job they were doing for the nation. And here's a twist you might not see coming from an old oil-fired plant. It was actually a leader in environmental and safety standards. No joke. It won international Green Apple Awards, held top-tier certifications, and even had advanced tech like a flue gas desulfurizer to control its emissions. So this wasn't some dirty, outdated plant. It was a really well-run, responsible operation. So if it was so reliable and even environmentally conscious, we're right back to our central question: why shut it down? Well, the answer lies in the fundamental economics of how it worked. This is the part of the story where a reliable plant became an obsolete one. Right? The whole problem is right here on this slide. The world of energy basically changed around Lalpir. Its fuel, that RFO, became incredibly expensive, and its price was all over the place compared to newer, cleaner, and way more efficient options like natural gas and renewables. The tech that was so revolutionary in the 90s it had become a financial liability.
And that high cost was locked in by this thing called capacity payments. This is a super important term to understand. The government was paying plants like Lalpir just to be available to make power, whether they actually did or not. It's kind of like paying a subscription fee for electricity, and for an expensive oil-fired plant, that subscription fee was becoming a massive drain on the national budget. And there it is, the direct cause. The government made a strategic call to cut costs. By ending the contract, it could stop making these huge capacity payments for an expensive type of power. It was a purely economic and strategic move, and it marked a huge shift in the country's energy policy. So what's the final legacy here?
The shutdown of Lalpir wasn't just about closing a factory. It was really about the end of an entire era, one that leaves behind a pretty complex story.
We just can't forget the positive side. For 30 years, this place was a major employer, a driver of the local economy, and a truly vital part of Pakistan's energy security. You have to say, it completely fulfilled the mission it was built for.
And this is the ultimate takeaway. The story of Lalpir is really the story of a whole chapter in Pakistan's history. Its closure is a big, flashing sign that the era of relying on expensive, imported furnace oil for power is officially over. The country is moving on. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. The story of Lalpir is a powerful reminder that progress often means leaving behind things that once served us really well. As these old technological giants are retired one by one, the question for Pakistan, and really for all of us, becomes, what's going to power the future?